Good evening, gentlemen. Uh, Good evening. I wish there were more ladies here. I was about to say out of habit, ladies and gentlemen, only to realize that there aren't any ladies here. But I guess that's something we should try and correct in the future as well. But anyway, a very warm welcome to all of you today. This is CNBC-TV18 presenting Accelerate Your Cloud Journey, Reinvent Faster with Security and Observability. This is in association with AWS and Cisco. We've gathered here today to focus on an important element of security and observability and fraud detection with full stack observability. Now, by 2026, the public cloud services market in India is likely to reach $13.5 billion. And yet, 100% of the fintech companies here have had to deal with some privacy or security problems associated with APIs, web apps, and subdomain. This essentially means that while Indian businesses are rapidly migrating to cloud, they've had multiple security challenges that they need to overcome. The good news is that full-stack observability can aid enterprises with fraud detection, enhance resource monitoring, improve their agility, and accelerate cloud journeys. Today, at this very special gathering of the BFSI and tech leaders, we will deliberate on the power of cloud security and observability solutions and how the sector can benefit in multiple ways, how financial service providers can secure the entire value chain via intelligent monitoring and vulnerability detection. We commence this evening with a very special industry insight on securing BFSI in a cloud-first era. With cloud adoption increasing at a rapid pace, operations in the financial sector are becoming extremely complex, posing challenges to performance monitoring and security. The fact the financial sector manages a lot of sensitive information and a breach can lead to massive losses adds to the concern. To address the same and to explore how the sector can be secured in a hybrid cloud environment, may I please welcome on stage Mr. Vivek Mathur, Partner Consulting Deloitte India, to take the stage.
Thank you. Good evening. I hope everyone had a reasonable time coming to this event in this part of the city. We were just debating outside, right? This has been a tough venue to come, but I think it's a great venue once you come here. So hopefully your time will be useful once you're here. So I think it's an interesting topic, no doubt, right? And I'm sure all of you are grappling today in some shape or form, right? First of all, why there is so much of a buzz around cloud? Is it really a fad? Or really a thing that will continue to stay with us, right? And interestingly, from a pre-pandemic time to the change, at least I have seen when I meet with many of my customers, from banks to financial services, institutions like NBFCs or insurance firms, there is an accelerated pace in which the adoption is now happening for sure. And the biggest change I have seen is earlier people used to talk about why cloud, right? And that was a common question to say, why even, right? We are doing many things even today, so why should it change? That question that at least now I go and visit the same set of customers is changing now to say, why not first on cloud, right? Why shouldn't it be first on cloud? And that I think is a big mindset, cultural, as well as economic change, right? In terms of how the economics of an organization works. Now, to just put a few stats around us, and I think my colleague earlier mentioned, right? The market is big, but if you realize the amount of digitization that has happened, we have still only covered anything between 5 to 10% of what we can potentially digitize, right? So the real journey in terms of digitization as well as cloud adoption is yet to start. We are only still scratching the surface, and that's the reality today, right? At the same time, if you look around any disruptors in any industry, right? Organizations that have come, whether it is the fintechs of the world or new organizations, startups that have very quickly reached unicorn status. One of the common element that you would find in many of these organizations is they are born on cloud, right? By default, they are born on cloud. I'm interestingly currently working with one of a similar kind of a startup, and over a period of time as they grew, they in fact went to an on-premise journey afterwards. And now they are realizing the pains and the travails of that world, and they are again coming back, right, to the cloud journey. So a lot of that flip-flop will also happen, and that I think is natural, right, even at the stature of large organizations level as well. I think what we need to understand is Are we ready for, to wait and watch and let the disruptors come and take away our pie? Or are we ready to disrupt ourselves? And that is a question that honestly that every organization and executive today should answer, right? Should we innovate our business ourselves, or we wait for an innovator to come? Because if you look at some of the BFSI norms and including the regulation which is changing in some of these sectors and subsectors, more and more you are finding that the regulator is slowly opening up the sectors as well. So entry barriers are reducing, your exit barriers are also receding, right? Reducing at the same time. So your tomorrow's customer might be a very different, or tomorrow's competitor rather will be a very different, right, in the space persona than what you have today, right? Securities is a great example of what has already happened in that as an example or a subspace within BFSI. So if the joke that I tell one of my, few of my friends is, if you're not on cloud, then potentially you may be also be not left with any space on earth also in future. So, so wait and watch for that. Anyway, I think Mumbai real estate anyway is expensive. But I think also important to know, right, what is the reason why, right, many organizations are actually now saying, why not first on cloud at least, right? And I think the biggest thing that I take away in the discussions I am with my clients is the drive for innovation, right? Because we are an extremely competitive market, right? Any product, any service, it takes a few months for any competitor to come and match you, right? And honestly, many of these which are available to at least a retail kind of a segment, right? It's very easy to replicate, right? So one of the things that any organization has to be ready with is how quickly you reduce the speed of innovation, how quickly you can churn out new things in the market, new variations in the market, new flavors in the market of your products and services. So it's a phenomenal speed of delivery, which undoubtedly you get right from the day one that you are on cloud. I'm currently working with one of the largest banks in India, and as you're aware, right, one of the largest domains in India where we are not only a follower, right, we are a leader in the market is a payments domain. And we're building a UPI solution for them because with all the changes that have been happening in the UPI ecosystem, the reality is the transactions have just shot through the roof. None of the banks in the country had imagined the scale of the transactions which they have today. So the legacy systems and platforms are not able to scale up. And I don't know if I face as a customer challenge in terms of completing my UPI transactions today. So why should you be in that space? And tomorrow the monetizations will come, right? That also is on the anvil once the regulator also start paying more attention on that. So a lot of things will change in those. But the key is, are we building something which is scalable, which is flexible, can give us tremendous amount of scale. And also, one of the challenges I see many organizations dealing with is we assume that we can throw more people and bodies and things will happen. It doesn't. I mean, to give a good example, one of the largest stock exchanges globally has only a team of 25 people that manages the exchange. 25 people, right? Just imagine the number. You pick any organization in India, you'll find more people than that, right? So how can we upskill? How can we automate? And use a lot of AI ML models, right, to bring that kind of automation in everything that you do under the technology shop. And that's where a lot of these concepts that we are going to talk about today come in handy as well. We are also living in a world where hyper-personalization is a reality. So whether we like it or not, we are very close to n is equal to 1 on a customer perspective, very personalized offer, very personal services. And this entire journey on cloud helps us reach to that point because one of the big things you are able to get value out of is the data that you have about your customer, whether it's a structured data you have, whether it's unstructured data that you have, right? And that will drive in terms of how you can up tomorrow newer models, whether it is even like banking as a service, where a bank can just be opening up their APIs for anybody else to use, monetize, and get a share out of it. Or it could be even open banking standards which are coming up. And if you look at some of the other things which are happening around the world, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the biggest investments this year in terms of CapEx is done by an organization which doesn't have products yet, which is around the metaverse as a space. The biggest CapEx. If you combine CapEx of Apple and some of the big tech companies, it actually supersedes all of them combined, right? So a lot of things will change. on the AR VR side. Tomorrow, you might not be interacting with the customers the way we are today. It could be still be 4 or 5 years out, but I think if we don't start preparing and anticipating some of these trends, then we'll be left behind. And again, I mentioned India is not only a fast adopter. Many places we are the leader globally. So a lot of innovation that we're doing in this part of the world, we are in fact taking right to other parts of the world as well. So we should be cognizant of that as well. Interestingly, some of the global BFSI organizations have also in the process realized that the run IT organization or traditional operations is not their bread and butter. So they have started exiting data centers. Some of the large brands have started exiting data centers. So cloud is not only be a place where you just think about some of the things, put it there, try it there, do POCs and move on. For some organizations, they have decided that cloud is the future for them, right? Because in that case, the business folks will focus on the business that they are strong in, where they have the strengths, where they have the skills, and somebody else will run it almost like a service for you, with obviously backed with the right SLAs, uptimes, right? All of that together. So again, the question is, are you ready to disrupt yourself, or you want to wait for somebody else to come and disrupt you? However, since the topic is also focused on security, I want to touch upon some of those elements as well. Now, when you look at the overall security for an organization, and any organization which has either adopted cloud or it's in the process to adopt cloud, all addressing all the regulatory concerns, the CISO concerns, right, are absolutely important. And from a cloud perspective, for any organization, I think the mindset-wise, you are not just protecting what you're putting on the cloud. You need to protect what you have as an overall organization, and that should be the mindset. Hence, it's also imperative to understand what kind of tools you already have, what kind of technologies you have already invested in, how do you harness some of those, right? At the same time, also evaluate what is already available out of the box in these platforms as well, right? And then make a choice. But end to end, you have to protect the entire organization in that sense as well. So data protection and privacy is a key concern area for all the organizations as well, and again, specifically more so on the BFSI organization. I think it's also important to understand whose responsibility is it, right? Is it the cloud provider's responsibility to do things? Is it an organization's responsibility, or at times is it a joint responsibility? And the nature of this at times also varies with the kind of consumption models you have, right? Whether it is infrastructure as a service that you are buying from a cloud provider, or is it on the other end software as a service that you are buying from the cloud provider. And I think that understanding as well as agreement is necessary when you go ahead and even sign up on agreements, right? Including also understanding what are your exit clauses, how is your data being protected in these scenarios, and so on and so forth, right? But security areas not only focus, obviously the table stakes are to secure the network, the access, the identity access management, the entire data and infrastructure around it. Also the resilience, right? Because tomorrow if there is an attack, right, how are you actually bringing your services faster, right? In fact, we run a practice internally in Deloitte which is focused on saying how do you quickly respond in that scenario, right? Because while you manage an event which can happen, right, how do you actually bring up your services faster so that you don't lose out on what your main business is, right? And how can you create those resilient infrastructure inside the organizations? And the last, which is primarily the topic today, is how are you more vigilant in terms of the logging, the monitoring around it, right? And I'll take an example here. I was part of a large bank merger, and one of the things we did in a command and control center that time was to put together a lot of screens where we could actually see live when the data is flowing. And one of the visualization was on just the kind of cyber attacks that the bank was facing during those few days when the merger was happening. And just visualization of that is like a sci-fi movie, because you can see something coming from a different part of the world, right, hitting you. And it is very powerful, right, to drive that behavior. So I think some part of visualization, many organizations have also built command control centers on a normal basis. I was part of one of the large PSUs where we built that. So you can actually see these things in action, right? So these are real-time KPIs being put there, and not only just giving you information to display, but also taking some actions, right? So how do you create that kind of an infrastructure in organization becomes the key. But however, a lot of organizations have tools around threat intelligence, whether it's SIEM, endpoint detection, right? Any kind of behavior monitoring that you need to do because the patterns may change. You need to understand that. The entire fraud and malware kind of detection, right? So the monitoring tools will vary, but it is also important to understand what you get when you subscribe to one of the cloud platforms as well, right? But what changes? I think that also is important to understand when you go ahead with this journey is you are going to be in what I call as a modern attack surface, right? Because you are going to be in a hybrid, potentially multi-cloud kind of a setup. Now, many organizations who have not dealt with this before need to understand the implication of a setup that you're getting into and what implication does it have from your cybersecurity perspective as well, and how do you protect it. At the same time, if you have a shadow IT active inside the organization and your business users have been given way more liberty, they can expose your services very quickly outside. So best of the cloud platforms can also be at risk if you don't have the right specialist managing the controls required to manage it. You are also subscribing on a lot of concentrated risks. If a lot of infrastructure will be on a cloud platform, then you are relying on obviously the risk that that platform is carrying. However, with all the bells and whistles that many of the large players have built in, right, I think you are more in a more secured facility for sure, right? But I think the speed to learn and adapt is one of the challenges I have faced or at least seen. Because any cloud provider will come with a lot of new services, new flavors, new patches, etc. The organization requires almost a different speed to learn as well and adapt, right? And if you don't have that skill, you need to build that or at least get that in-house. Otherwise, it becomes very challenging for you to keep on learning and unlearning new things as they come because the speed is very fast, right, compared to the traditional world. The other risk area that I have seen emerging is the entire third-party risk, right? In fact, in recent times, the regulator has also taken a note. There are a lot of IT outsourcing guidelines which are coming up, right? And what I've seen, some of the organizations have started creating internally a digital risk office because the traditional risk office, the way it was constructed, whether you're a bank or an insurance firm or an NBFC, was very different than the digital risk, which is coming from your own ecosystem and infrastructure, as well as your extended ecosystem and infrastructure. And if you have taken, let's say a fintech to join hands and do part of the work for you, you are responsible for finding out the third-party risk that they carry for you also, because ultimately you are responsible for the customer and you are responsible to the regulator. So that makes the problem statement much wider, right? And I think that is the reality of today. So while a lot of these are critical in terms of an hybrid multi-cloud kind of a setup, I think how one can solve or at least start putting those amendments to solve this is obviously bringing in complete full stack observability, right? Because the data is growing at scale, which is much faster. And I'm not talking about consumer data at this point of time. A typical like-to-like of a VM which is on-premise to what is there on cloud, the data that is being created in these setups itself at times grows from 10 to 100x, right? So you are going to deal with very kind of expansion of data than what you have not seen before in the traditional VMs. At the same time, it's also important to baseline the performance, right, before you move into cloud, as well as once you move, compare the performance of any application, infrastructure on cloud. Because unless you do that, you will not know the real difference in terms of specific KPIs, benefits, etc. This is again a magic that many organizations miss. It's assumed that you move on cloud, everything will work better. It may not be the case, right? So you have to fine tune it, you have to optimize it, but at the same time, you have to also baseline it before that, right? I think there are a lot of things from an observability perspective that can be brought to bear, whether it's the metrics in terms of KPIs, whether it is the traces in terms of events or discontinued events that can happen. How do you actually solve it? The traditional IT problem always has been, you ask the network vendor, he will say everything is fine. You ask the infrastructure guy, he'll say everything is fine, but still the user is not getting the experience, right? So how do you solve for those things, right? And then the expanded world of logs, right? There are so many tools inside the IT ecosystem where logs are getting created, but how are we harnessing that information that is getting created? And that is where, again, the tools around observability come in very handy as well. One of the other elements that many of these tools bring in is the entire persona-based insight, because what a CIO might want to see might be a very different kind of a dashboard visibility, or even a senior executive in an organization versus somebody who's just managing the infrastructure, for example, right? So there are different personas, right? So this helps in terms of right sizing it, putting the right dashboards, providing the right visibilities, a lot of self-healing capabilities, so that before things go bad, how do you actually not only just automate but self-heal also, right? How do you bring that? And then more importantly, how do you bring automation and AI ML so that a lot of this triggering can happen in a more predictable basis, all driven by the data that you only are producing as an environment, right, in these accounts. So internally, for example, Deloitte has set up an observability lab. The idea is that since a lot of these concepts are so new, the tools are so new, can we actually help our customers in terms of bringing up to speed and actually showing the value through these as well. So that's how we have progressed. But I think a lot needs to be done. I'll end on this note, and I hope you will have a fruitful discussion today as well. Thank you very much for having me here.
Very interesting discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mathur, for giving us this valuable insight, a sneak peek into BFSI security as well as observability in a cloud-powered environment. Next, let's do a deep dive into the importance of security and observability once again in the BFSI and fintech stage, because security has always been a chief priority for financial institutions. Keeping financial sector data safe and protecting critical transaction against frauds and cyber attack remains on every financial service provider's mind. This is especially crucial in the backdrop of rapid cloud migration. So let me invite on stage Mr. Chandra Balani, Head of Global Enterprise India at Amazon Web Services, to shed light on how cloud observability solutions can help identify vulnerabilities and anomalies, block suspicious behaviors, and prevent breaches along the value chain to boost security in the sector.
My name is Chandra Balani, as she said. I'm based out of Hyderabad, and came this evening to meet all of you, and it's fabulous. Now we have a full house. So effort and thank you for taking that effort to coming and joining us this evening. So can we have a round of applause for all of you? Right? Let's get this room energized. So I'm with AWS now from last 10 years. Okay, this is my 10th year, and joined right in the first year that AWS started in India, and I've seen the early days to now scale days, and Vivek, I think, covered pretty nicely in terms of the industry trends. You know, as he rightly said, you know, the question nowadays is not why cloud, it's the how cloud. And when I started in AWS, we had to start with what cloud, right? So from what cloud to now why cloud, and now really how cloud, right? It's not a question on why. So it's fabulous, you know, journey that I'm having, you know, from last 10 years, and last 3 years I've been working with global customers in India. So in every segment, every industry, we have the lighthouse, large global customers. They have a huge presence in India. So I manage all of these global customers, me and my team, from last three and a half years now. Okay, with that, let's get on to the topic. So I again, you know, I think Vivek did a fabulous job on setting the stage on the industry trends, but I just brought this slide up to show like 2-3 big trends, right? So if you see the Indian market, the internet and smartphone usage is now, you know, more than 50% of our population, right? Huge numbers. People are making financial transactions on the mobile as well, right? Forrester did a research, and there was the answer that 59% of the people living in metros were okay to do a digital bank only kind of a model, right? Where actually branches are there, and 59% of that, they say absolutely, you know, we are good to go without any branch model, digital only. So that's the kind of, you know, future that we are seeing. Plus, you know, laser sharp focused government initiatives, right? If you see the schemes like UPI and Jan Dhan and the entire JAM piece that is there, and India Stack and Umang, all of these initiatives, it shows the forward-looking government that we have in terms of the digital way. And the answer where we see is on the right side. We already have 10 trillion rupees of transactions happening on UPI, right? 100% year-on-year growth between May this year versus last year, right? 80% financial inclusion, people having bank accounts. And then look at the loan disbursed data, meteorological increase, 12x, 12 times increase in the digital disbursement of the loans, right? So that kind of sets the stage. Like, these are unprecedented times where the market is growing digital at a very fast pace, and then that helps customers adopting cloud to be able to manage that kind of a digital growth, manage that kind of an agility that you see that is required for you to operate in such a digital and fast-paced environment, right? So in this context, right, of the digital world, right, there are a few things for financial institutions that we see like a shift, right? So the importance is on customer centricity, right? So at Amazon, we say, we want to be Earth's most customer-centric organization, right? And we work backwards from customer needs. Now, why? Because as customers, as human beings, our requirements are always changing, right? And we have a saying at Amazon, we say that as customers, as human beings, we are always beautifully and wonderfully dissatisfied, right? We are always asking for more, we are always asking for faster, we are always asking for better, we are always asking for cheaper, right? And all of this at the same time as well, right? So if the customer expectations are changing, right, how are you matching to those expectations, right? And unless and until you work backwards from your changing customer needs, you can really be left behind, because someone else is, right? As Vivek said, disrupt or get disrupted. So someone else is matching to those expectations. If you are not, then you are missing on the piece, right? So digital experience, right? New age, it's getting all into digital experience. So how are you building your entire onboarding and cash service, the entire flow in a digital way, right? And then data driven, right? And data driven is easier said than done, right? But to be able to generate insights from your data, right? They say data is the new oil, right? But just like oil, unless you refine it, it's not of much use. So you need to be able to get insights from your data to be able to improve your customer experience, to be able to see the trends, and then even come out with new offerings, right? And last point is, how do you leverage the ecosystem around it, right? We are getting into more and more like an API world. So how are you able to utilize that ecosystem is something that you need to think through, right? And then cloud is enabling that shift, with and I'll not say necessarily AWS only, but cloud in general. And AWS is the pioneer, of course. But if you see the kind of workloads, right, that are moving through, right, from customer experience improvement, digital experience with chatbots, to personalization, to the data lake management and agile analytics that I was talking about, right? So you put all your data on AWS S3. We have a simple storage service, but the beauty of that is once you have all of it, you can get insights as an integrated data across your organization, right? And then with machine learning, services, once you have all the data, it's great to have all those fraud detections, that you can look at, all those claims and all of that, like automate a lot of stuff that you can improve in your core processes itself, and that to core bank, core systems as well. We have Finacle available from Infosys, Edgeverve, as an entire core banking available on the cloud now, right? It's running on AWS, right? And not just that, we have customers, global customers that I manage, a large bank, global bank operating in India as well. I can't name it because they have not yet signed the reference. But we migrated their Oracle FlexCube core banking onto AWS 9 months ago, and it's running seamlessly, right? So we have forward-looking banks which are managed now, which are running their core workloads as well. And then grid computing, right? This is like I would say, this should perhaps come to more widespread areas, because with grid computing, essentially you can run, hundreds and thousands of cores, right? Managing financial systems in terms of risk management and all of that, you anyway manage with all this compute work, right? But imagine you have 100,000 cores available to you in a pay-as-you-go model that you can add, and then once your job is done, you can stop paying, right? So how you can improve all your financial processes with that kind of a compute available at your fingertips in a pay-as-you-go model. And of course, the Web3, as the latest trend with all the blockchain and metaverse, as Vivek said, those are the future trends that we see, and cloud is enabling all of that, as customers are looking to improve experience for the customers, right? So AWS has like 200 plus services, and I'll not go through the details of these. But the idea and the way that we operate in AWS is like we give you those Lego blocks, right? And with those Lego blocks, you can put things together on whatever workload that you are looking to run and deploy it quickly, right? You can do it yourself. We can help you with our professional services team. We have partners who can help you bring a workload, of course, with all the security and the compliance regulations that are required for the workload that you're running. But the important thing is, it's a pay-as-you-go model, right? So it does two things. One, it helps you in all the experimentation, right? Where we always say, fail fast, fail cheap, right? And that's a mantra for innovation, and that's what cloud does to you. That's why all these startups that you see in the world, 90% of them are running on AWS, because they had an idea and they were curious, and if they started with AWS, the idea worked, they were able to scale. Idea didn't work, kill it, stop moving, stop paying for it, right? So the cost of experimentation is really down, and which is where now all the enterprises are building up teams which are innovating as well on how they can improve their businesses, their customer experience, right? And the second part which helps, which is beneficial with the cloud, is the agility, right? You can really scale things up, you can really scale things down as required, as the times change, and I'll come to that maybe in a minute as I share some of those stats, right? And lot of you might not know this, but this is an important stat. 83 of the top India large enterprises are already using cloud, right? And this is enterprise in general. 83 of the largest 100 India enterprises are already using cloud. 7 of the top 10 banks are using AWS cloud. 20 of the top 20 insurers are using AWS cloud, and then 5 of the top 10 NBFCs. And this is dated, right? This is dated about 6 months ago. I didn't have the latest stats, but I thought I'll still bring it up because that shows the kind of trend that is there in the industry, right? So some names out there, right, for you to have a look. Probably I'll add some light there. Let's say Axis Bank, right? So Axis Bank, declared last year that they are going to move 70% of their workloads to AWS cloud, right? 70% of their workloads, and they are already now 20% migrated and work in progress. They have a COE where they look at all those building those security and compliance guardrails that are required, and that ensures that they are moving with the right controls onto the cloud, and even critical workloads, right? So their service buy now pay later is already running on AWS, right? If you look at RBL, they said we can't wait, right? How can we do it fast? So they gave us a challenge kind of a thing that, hey, I want to move it now, right? So we worked with them in identifying 60 applications. We got our ProServe team involved, there was a partner involved, and we migrated those 60 applications in 60 days. So 60 in 60 kind of a project, right? HDFC Life has put a customer onboarding platform onto AWS. So quite a few examples there. I don't have time to go through all of those, but real production workloads, are now being used on the cloud in AWS, right? Some of the benefits, cost benefits out there, fewer security incidents, right? Earlier there used to be a question, is cloud secure? But now a lot of customers are actually coming to AWS because it is more secure that they can manage it themselves, right? Improvement in staff productivity, right? More features delivered on what you want to do, how you want to innovate, right? One stat that is missing in this is the agility, and which really you can't put it in a stat, right? Very difficult to quantify agility, right? But I'll give you a couple of examples, right? When demonetization was announced, right? Anyone remembers the date? A lot of you remember the date, right? Within a month, the wallets that are there, most of them are on AWS, their consumption went almost 100 times, 100x, right? And imagine whichever business that you are managing today, if you have a 100% increase in your business, 100x, not 100%, 100x, 100 times increase in your business, how are you going to manage the infrastructure for that? How are you going to provision scale for that? How are you going to manage that growth, right? And they were running on AWS. All they had to do was scale as per the need, a lot of auto scaling and serverless technologies that were built in. And it was, they were a happy team looking at business going northwards, right? Take an example of pandemic, right? With pandemic coming in, there were two types of businesses, one which saw growth and another which saw decline, right? Video platforms like our partner Cisco's WebEx, a few others, right? Their traffic went like 300 times, right? In a matter of January 2020 to April 2020, 300%, increased traffic, which is great news for business, right? But can IT manage that? Can you build data centers overnight and manage that kind of a infrastructure and capture that opportunity, right? On the similar side, travel and hospitality companies, right? Traffic was 95%, 99% down, right? So what happened to the infrastructure that they are set up in the data centers, right? Sales is down, cost is remaining same, so net loss, right? But for customers which are running on cloud, for example, Expedia, right, one of our global customers, they had a 99% reduction in traffic. Obviously, no one is traveling, so no one is searching for a place to book, and they reduced their infrastructure accordingly, right? As the traffic was coming down, their costs were coming down as well. So they lived through their day during those times, for the time that there was no traffic coming in, and as people started traveling again, they increased their infrastructure as well. So agility to change your business with the times, right, with customer needs, whether it is to grab an opportunity or to manage a crisis, right? That is what I'm talking about, that comes with cloud, right? You are able to sustain, you are able to get the opportunity, and if something goes wrong, you are able to sustain through the difficult times as well. Can't quantify. However, there are certain challenges, right, with cloud migration, as Vivek also called out. Sometimes it's difficult to ascertain the root cause, as you're saying, sometimes on your data center when you are your new network or someone else. Even in cloud, sometimes it's difficult, right? It's very easy to over provision resources, right? A lot of our customers, when they're running in the data center, they are running at like 15-20% usage, right? Because they have bought for 5-year capacity. There are certain peaks that come as part of their business, and they have to manage that peak as part of the data center capacity. And when they migrate probably using the same capacity on AWS as well, and they say, hey, performance is looking good. But is that required on AWS? No. On cloud, you manage with the right sizing, probably with the right architecture, serverless, containers, you can actually bring down that cost. But sometimes people don't do that. So we help them in cost optimization as well. There are times when, as Vivek also called out, right? Is it meeting our business needs, right? And then is the new deployment, are they degrading performance? Are there any changes that are happening that we need to look at, through the technology stack, right? And that's where our partnership with Cisco as a partner comes handy, because with Cisco you have the full stack observability and security solutions that come in. You can do real-time cross-check, end-to-end visibility of your user experience, correlation of technical performance with the business performance, and get the visibility, so that if there are problems that are occurring, you have the visibility to solve for those faster, right? And add those AI and ML capabilities that come along with AWS. You can actually predict and sometimes prevent those problems that occur as well, right? So basically, it's a win-win partnership that you have. With cloud, you accelerate your business. With Cisco and AWS cloud, you also ensure that your security is taken care of, your observability is taken care of, right? So help you, build that agility that I was talking about with the cloud-first model. Last call out on my slides is that we have a huge marketplace, right? AWS is a pretty big ecosystem now. It's last quarter we reported $21 billion of revenue. So it's about 20 change. So it's about $80 billion of run rate business, right? And growing at 27-28%, right? Such a mammoth business growing at that pace. We have a pretty huge ecosystem of software products that are deploying on AWS, and then we have made them available through the marketplace. So almost 10,000 plus listings of software that are available as one-click deployment, so that not only your hardware infrastructure that comes with AWS in a pay-as-you-go model, but also the software is available in a pay-as-you-go model, right? So you basically can use all of that across. And then for Cisco in specific, there are 55 products available on the AWS marketplace already, and more of them are getting and made available on the marketplace. So you as a customer can look at utilizing them, along with AWS and Cisco. You have people, you have teams to help you, but then in terms of your procurement, you really don't have to go anywhere, just that one marketplace that you can utilize it from in a pay-as-you-go model. With that, I'm done. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and listening to me. Thank you. I'll be available on the panel as well, so if there are more questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you. Rima, back to you.
Thank you very much, Chandra. That was a very compelling presentation on why cloud and why AWS as well. So thank you very much for that. Extremely insightful. Now we'll continue to have this conversation on security as well as observability. Now, most businesses are functioning today in a hybrid cloud environment backed by technologies like AI, IoT, and it's imperative to take cloud security very seriously. This also makes it imperative that innovative observability and security solutions come in the spotlight as they help in monitoring and improving the network health, identify suspicious activity, accelerate safe cloud adoption. To understand this space better, if we have with us Mr. Anand Patil, Senior Director, Systems Engineering at Cisco, to share his insights, observations, and tell us the kind of solutions that Cisco has. Okay, so Anand will be joining us in just a moment from now. He's still getting mic'd up. So please, bear with us. A warm welcome to Anand Patil of Cisco.
Thank you very much, Gitanjali. You could have probably, plugged in a joke or two somewhere in there so that we could have kept the audience entertained. Good evening. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for spending the time with us this evening. A lot of context setting has happened. Industry, AWS, relevance of the industry, and relevance of AWS to the industry as well. I'm going to dive right into it, okay? Right into what we came here to talk about. But let me start by asking one simple question. What is the difference between visibility and observability? Anyone? Visibility? What's visibility? We've got all evening. I can wait till somebody answers. Reactive versus proactive, yes, that's one way to look at it, absolutely. Intelligence, sorry, there's one more. Observability is more than what we see with the eye, okay, good ones. Let me try and explain this with an example so that it's also a little bit clearer. How many of you own cars here? I know Bombay is not the best place to drive these days, but you can be driven around. Most of you own cars, right? I'm sure, yeah? Has it ever happened to you that you're driving the car on the road and it suddenly stops? I'm talking about a modern car, right? Not a Fiat or the old Padmini. Typically, these days, it never happens. Why doesn't it happen? Those of you who drive cars, you'll know this. Why doesn't the car stop on you? Better engineering, obviously. So today's cars are very sophisticated machines, right? There's a ton of telemetry that is built into the car. So on the dashboard, what do you see? When something goes wrong, there's a red light that lights up. It'll tell you if your engine is too hot, if your tire pressure is not right, if you're running out of oil, or you're running out of fuel, or anything that's wrong, it shows up, right? So the car doesn't stop on you. You see what's wrong so that you can take the car to the nearest service center and get it fixed. Right? Wouldn't it be nice if you're running an application on AWS to have a dashboard like that that tells you what's wrong so that you can fix it before it stops your business? Yeah? That's observability. Okay? So let me try and take this ahead with an example, a technical example now. Bear with me. Today, most of you in the room are from the financial sector. And even if you're from the financial sector, these days, probably the only way to interact with your customers is through technology. A majority of your customers interact with you. I know. I use the app. I hate going to the branch. I'm one of those, right? I use the app all the time. So a lot of your customers, your consumers probably also interact with you with the app. So in today's day and age, if you're running a business, apps are your lifeline. In a lot of cases, the app is your business. If the app stops, sometimes your business stops. A lot of times, your business is affected. App experience equals customer experience equals business experience. All right? So let's assume now that you're an insurance company, all right? And like Chandra said, 20 out of 20 insurance companies are on AWS, so I'm presuming they're doing some kind of online insurance selling. So customers come to your app or your website and able to buy insurance policies. Suddenly, you start to see a dip in the sales of your insurance policies overnight, okay? First of all, how do you measure that? I mean, how do you even see that until you've closed your books and then figured out, the number of policies sold has come down? Will you be able to see that KPI somewhere? Second, how will you pinpoint the issue? Why is this happening? Now, people could not buy insurance policies for a variety of reasons, but let's assume for a moment that this is a technical reason we're talking about, all right? It could be that one of the pages on the app or the website is actually slow, and people are not patient enough. It's not loading, so they say, okay, I'm going somewhere else. It could be they're taking too many clicks to get to the right kind of information. They need to know about the policy and the details, but it just takes too many clicks to find that information. It could also be that before they complete the payment, they're exiting. They put the policy in the cart but don't make a payment. How do you figure all of this out? Right? And how do you figure out that in the last case, it was actually because there is a payment gateway integration that has gone faulty. It's not responding to you, and therefore half of your customers are not able to make a payment, not able to complete their purchase of the policy. That's directly affecting your business. How do you get that kind of visibility, that kind of observability? Now let's take it one step further. Let's say your app is fine, okay? It's working. However, you are running out of heap memory on your compute instance in AWS. How do you know how that is affecting your app? It might be having the same kind of impact, bad customer experience, people saying, I don't like this, I'm going to some other site and buying my insurance policy. Let's take it one step further. What if you figure out that this drop in sales of insurance policies is happening from a single region in India? One place in India. That's the only place where you're seeing customers not buying insurance policies anymore. But that is also happening at certain times of the day. How do you try and fix this problem? How do you even figure out what's going on? And then you find out, and then you're able to identify that there is an internet service provider in the region that has a problem at certain times of day, which even they are not aware of. Okay? So this is what observability is all about. This is about getting business KPIs, business metrics on a dashboard and being able to quickly correlate that to something that is happening in your application, in your infrastructure, or in your network. That's what we call full stack observability. Because remember, any problem that you get, any technical problem that you get, most of us here are technology people, anything that you get, you will eventually troubleshoot and find the root cause. But when the app is your business, time is of the essence. So it's not about whether you get to the root cause, it's about when do you get to the root cause. That's where FSO comes in. Full stack observability becomes critical. So let's switch to the second topic of the day, which is security. All right? Now, when you think about moving applications to the cloud, okay, security obviously becomes paramount. The first thing that you start to think about is in terms of applications that you're moving to the cloud. Is anyone actually on a project to do application modernization in this room? Not yet? A few, yeah? So you will know that when you're modernizing your applications, today's applications can be incredibly complex. All right? I'll talk about an example later why they are complex, but just understand that the dependencies on the ecosystem and within the app itself can be quite humongous to troubleshoot. Now, when you move that whole application to the cloud, you can imagine that you have multiple different components of the application talking to each other, maybe talking across your on-prem and your cloud infrastructure on AWS, and also talking to third-party systems like payment gateways, right? Like in the previous example. All of you heard of zero trust security? Yeah? How do you implement zero trust in an environment like this? When everything is public, when everything is on the cloud, when you have integrations with multiple different types of infrastructure. The first thing that you need to do is get visibility. Who's talking to whom? What port are they talking on? how is the traffic flowing, what components are legitimately talking, and so on and so forth. Use that data, use that visibility to implement micro-segmentation. That's how you do zero trust security for your workloads in the cloud. All right? Now, just taking a step back, Vivek mentioned the shared responsibility framework for implementing security in a public cloud environment. Anybody know what that means, what that is? If you go and read that up on AWS, it actually means that AWS will be responsible for security on their side when it comes to the infrastructure on the cloud side, right? But as an AWS customer, you are responsible for the security of your application, your workload, and the data that you host on AWS, all right? So it's a shared responsibility. In fact, Gartner in 2019 predicted that by 2025, 99% of all cloud breaches, public cloud security breaches, will be a result of a customer fault. All right? So this is pretty serious stuff. You have to take cloud security, application security, workload security pretty seriously. So once you've done micro-segmentation, now you need to now start thinking about who's accessing the application and are they legitimate? So then you start thinking about who's the user, identity, can they be authenticated? Now, most of you know, if you're in the security business, that passwords are still the most exploited attack vector in the world today, okay? Everybody uses them, but they're the weakest link in the security chain. So how do you implement multi-factor authentication? How do you ensure that the device that is accessing the cloud is not infected with malware, it's not infiltrated, it has the right posture, it has the right applications, protection, etc. You have the right person using the right device, accessing the right application, right? So this whole chain, including the workload and the user, which we call the workforce, needs to be secured when you're thinking about a cloud application. But let me not just talk about it. To be able to demonstrate how Cisco solutions allow you to create observability in a cloud environment with your application, as well as secure it on AWS, I'm going to call upon my colleagues, Vijay Tripathi and Raghav, to come and help me demonstrate this on stage. Come on up. I'm going to leave you in their safe hands, and I'll come back in a moment once they're done.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I will try to answer all the queries and all the questions you have that what you'll get with the full stack observability. So as Ananda was talking that, oh, second, I'm sorry. Yes, okay. So AD Financial is a trading application. So they were facing some challenges. There was some performance issue in their application. So this is the DC environment, and the customer came to us and they asked us to create a dashboard where they can see all the performance on the single dashboard. So we have created an executive dashboard for our customer. So on left hand side, you can see the user journey. Why it is not readable? Can you like change the setting? Okay, so I'll read it out for you. So on the left hand side, you can see the user journey. So user journey is I'll talk from here. So user journey is collection of the multiple business transaction and multiple business API. So you can see user can log in onto the trading application website and they can search for the trade, they can add the trade, they will get the codes and they process the trade. And on the right hand side, you can see there's a spike into the response time. There was a poor response time while they are purchasing their trading trades. So you can see the get quotes and process trade was facing some issue. And on the bottom side, you can see all the component, which is all the services which we are monitoring to run this application. So being an application owner or being a business owner, I want to know when user is purchasing the trade, why process trade is not available for the end user or why there's a response time is slow. So once I double click on that, I will be presented with user complete application flow map graph. So here you can see when user click on your business application, any business call, how it is traveling inside your data center, inside your application component. So request is landing on the web front end page and then there is a downstream call for the order processing. So on the, you can see there's a spike on the response time and the load. Thank you. Okay. So you can see there's a spike on the load and on. So App Dynamics has a machine learning algorithm. It will read your application behavior, it will read your application pattern, and based on that, it will create a dynamic baselining. So if there is any problem, there is any anomaly detected in your application, so it will tell you there is a red indication, there is an amber indication on your application. So on the right, at the same time, you can see the right hand side that there's a transaction scorecard. So calculating this dynamic baselining, App Dynamics is telling you that 45% requests are very slow. So being an application owner, I want to know why my application request is slow for my end user, why there's a poor digital experience for my end user. So I'll click on the very slow transactions and it will be listed all the transaction snapshot. So basically transaction snapshot, any anomaly which is detected inside your application, so it will collect the snapshot of your application and it will tell you the complete call stack graph. It will tell you the what are the components are involved from the middleware layer, from the application layer, where to blame, what is the potential issue. So transaction snapshot is one user action. So if I'm opening any of the slow business transaction snapshot, I will see like what are the potential issues application has. So it is not visible. It is visible for everyone? Actually, it is visible on that screen. How can I? Okay, no problem. So basically, these are the methods, these are the potential issues which your this user action has, and when it is landing on the web front end page, I can see there's a red indication, there is some error detected, or there is just some content, there's a like long thread which is waiting to execute this particular user request. So if I will double click on the web front end here, so I can see the complete call stack graph. And on the complete call stack graph, I can expand and I can see every application method which has been called, which has been executed. And I can see here there's a one downstream call. So basically, I have a code. Now I have all the code level visibility. I know my web front end here is working fine. There's some problem on the downstream side. So App Dynamics has a tracing method. You can trace your complete application call using app monitoring. So if I'm going on the downstream call, you don't need to open the other dashboard. From here, you can go on the order processing downstream call, and you can expand the complete downstream calls as well. So here I can see there is a one main thread which is waiting. So that is going on the wait stage. So that means there's a main thread is not processing, and your application response is very slow. So that is the one root cause we got in 3 clicks. So as Anand was saying, that if there is any slow response, there's any anomaly detected, there's any problem, error and exception detected, how will you troubleshoot? So in 3 clicks, you'll get the bottleneck in App Dynamics. The second, you can see the JDBC call. So if there is a problem on the database side, so you can troubleshoot with the database monitoring. Since there's no problem on the database side, we'll not go there. We will see this is the async method call. So that means when a request is processing, the async method call is not particular processing. At the same time, we can see the server details, whether there is any spike on the server side or there is any spike on the network side. So I will have the complete visibility. So as Vikas was mentioning, when we decided to move on cloud, so here I have noticed that processes are taking time to complete, and there's a spike on server and network layer as well, where I can see there's a network drops, there's a TCP connection drops, and there's a latency is very high, connection is very high. So the AD Financial has now data, they have a telemetry data, they have all the fact finding, and they can easily determine that we can move to the cloud environment. So because once once they move to the cloud environment, so during the transition, how App Dynamics can help? First, we can figure out what is wrong in your data center application. You can collect all the telemetry data. You can collect all the fact finding. And in the transition, you can see what are the API which has migrated successfully. So we will help you in the migration. And if there is any services which is not migrated, you can figure out during the migration, and you can take a call. So after the migration, you can see the process trade and get quotes are now in green stage. You can compare both the data on App Dynamics since they move chunks of the traffic to the cloud. So you can see there's a response time is now better. They reduce the MTTR on the cloud side, and there's a no red indication on your application. So that is the one benefit you'll get with the App Dynamics. And second, if I'm going on the now process trade application, so process trade services. So once I'll click the process trade services, if it is talking to your on-premises application as well, you will see the connection between your on-prem to cloud. So you will have the hybrid visibility on the App Dynamics screen. So here you can see the complete flow map graph, so which is auto discovered. There's no absolutely change required. It will be discovered automatically. And if I'm clicking on the new application which is created, AD Financial Cloud, I can see all the component has been discovered, and it has discovered also the AWS component as well. You can see the DynoDB component, S3 bucket which is discovered into the cloud. So you will on the cloud, you will have the visibility of the application. You will have the visibility of the AWS cloud component. And if there is any anomaly detected, in the same manner, you can drill down and you can pinpoint to the root cause very easily. So, and as it has created the baselining, you can see baselining is very low in this screen, and you can see your complete node health. So basically, if there is any, and of course, one thing I want to mention, we are running on all your application side, but if there is any exit call, we'll have the visibility on that exit call as well. So that is from the application side. Now from the business side, you can see that we have created the funnel dashboard. So your all business processes are stitched with your backend component. So you can see after the migration, response time are getting better for every critical APIs, and conversion rate, user conversion rate is better now. So you are losing less revenue now. Previously, there was business impact, negative business impact on your application. So you optimize that negative business impact. You can clearly see the differences between on-prem and to AWS. Right now, there is a 36% successful conversion. So every business processes are stitched with your backend component, whether it's a application, your web browser, mobile devices, your databases, or network. So if there is any negative business impact, you can see with App Dynamics. So this is the full stack observability. So, and I just said, let me forward it. The response time is getting better, and you can see the load. So first you can test the load, and if like there is a problem on the application load side, there's a if there is a unit testing issue, so that also with the full stack observability, you can test that out. I'm sorry. Yes. So that is from the business side and from the application and network. Suppose your application is talking to any third-party API, as this application. This particular application has a payment method which is going outside of your data center, and it is talking. It is going to for the payment settle. But when it is going for the payment settle, I can see there's a 54% downstream on the application. So, and at the same time, I can see there's a latency issue, and there's a jitter time is very high. So my revenue goes to almost 0%. If this is the scenario where you do not have visibility, you want to see when request went outside of your data center, how it is traveling on the public internet, which are the component, which are the network hops which is involved when it went outside of your data center. So this is the particular payment survey where your trade is getting settled. So I can see there's a latency issue. If I scroll down, these are the network hops outside of your data center. So basically it is traveling from the London, America, and Japan. So, but there's a TCP, there's a domain fault, and there's a TCP drop. So that is why your trade was not getting settled, and you are losing all the revenue. And so App Dynamics is the one, FSO is the only player in the market which we provide end-to-end visibility. So you will have not the complete visibility from end to end using other app monitoring available in the market. Same scenario, so for the network, suppose there's a problem on your JVM side, as Anand was mentioning. So if there is any one of my JVM heap utilization is high, how can I optimize my infrastructure? So for the infrastructure optimization, we have an InterSite. So InterSite will harvest the business logic from the performance data, and it will tell you what is the best computation required to provide the superior digital experience to your end user. So in this scenario, I took one example. One of JVM nodes are, heap utilization is high. So you can see which particular JVM nodes are high. So suppose you have a load balancer and request is going on the different JVM. You can see what is the utilization right now I have. And App Dynamics has also the heap memory table. So who are from the middleware team, they know how to fine tune. So when object is storing into the middleware layer. So one second, sorry. So yes, so I can go on the InterSite, and this is the same flow which we have on the App Dynamics screen, and it is telling me that one of the heap is high because right heap was not assigned to the JVM. So it is asking us to increase the heap utilization from the 400 GB to 600 GB. So if you will increase that much memory, so it will provide the same experience. Your application response time will not be slow. That is the one use case. The second use case, so you have a digital native cloud environment, and there's a peak time in your application. So during the peak time, there will be more container which will spin up, and once peak time is gone, InterSite will suggest you to turn off your container. So with the less container, you can run the application. It will provide the same response time, and there will be no error and exception your end user will face. Second, as the same for if there is a peak time, it will suggest you to increase more container in your application. So this will help into the AWS EKS, where you are using the Kubernetes environment. So as we talk about the infrastructure optimization, next is we have like a security component. So in App Secure, we will discover all the vulnerabilities, and if there is any attack on your application, we will tell you how to prevent that attack. If there is any vulnerabilities is found, we will scan all the library. What are the remediation required for the vulnerabilities? That is the one use case. The second use case, if there is an unwanted component talking to your application. So here we can see there is a high load on your application. And when we are watching this critical health rule violation, so we discovered there's a new business transaction has discovered. There's a new business called API has been discovered. So that is, we checked with application owner and they confirmed that this is not our business transaction. So we can go on the inventory tab and we can see like which are the node has been affected first. So on this request are talking to which are the JVMs. And at the same time, so this is the screen. You can see you cannot read it out. So I'll read it out. So this is saying that this is the new business transaction has been discovered on the particular only one node. So I will go on the App Secure dashboard and I can block this particular request from the App Security side. And at the same time, I will check if there, so there's a security health, you can see if there is any vulnerabilities found on the security side, so you can discover that as well. So I will see all the attacks here, and I will point out the particular business transaction, and I will block this business transaction. So this is app security features which FSO has. So we can monitor your complete stack. We can tell you what is the negative business impact you have. If there is any security attack, there is any slow response, any anomaly detected, you can discover what is the revenue you are losing, we can tell you, and how to fix it quickly. Since security cannot travel to your application site, so it can also travel to, this is from the application surface, you can detect your vulnerabilities, but there are other aspects where your security threats could be existed. So I will ask Raghu to cover that journey. Yeah, thank you.
I'll just use this one. So yeah, I'll just a second. Move this. It's more clear now. So yeah, as Anand mentioned, micro-segmentation and getting visibility into the application is the need, but application as a whole itself consists of different other components. You would be having your development application, production application, UAT application, and within that you would be having your DB servers, you would be having your web interfaces, app servers, some other databases that include. Now, so much spread around the application. How do we get that visibility? How do you allow what kind of ports do we need? What type of traffic between the servers are moving? Is my development server talking to my production server? Or users are managing with servers? How do you get that visibility? So with secure workload, we have a native integration with AWS where we can actually ingest the VPC flow logs. We can get all the labels that you have already given to your EC2 instances. We ingest that with the IP addresses, and with the query language, we can create a hierarchy region-wise. So as you can see, US East 1 might be having some 10 IPs, then US East 2, you have some more IPs with certain labels that you would have given to the applications. With this, we create an hierarchy, and within that hierarchy, we see what type of communication is happening on which type of ports. So I want to show you in my lab live, actually. So what type of, I'll just move this across. So, okay.
I hope it's clear. So one of the applications that we have created, okay, it's very difficult to manage like this. Yeah. So this is the visibility that we discover. So if this is the application, I'll just increase the size so that it's visible. Yeah. So if you look at, so there would be a front-end tier, a database tier. Within that same application, you would have a cache tier, search engine, everything together. But how do you identify at a network level what type of communication is happening, what type of ports do we need to open? So with the VPC flow log, we can get that information. And it's not only for that application. That application might be talking to another application, or it might be talking to domain controllers. Like in this example, there is communication on these ports happening towards the domain controller from the application tier. So identifying is one aspect. We can do that enforcement at that workload level itself. So once the policies are identified, we get a list view. From here, you can actually review all the policies. Communication is happening from which source to which destination on which protocols, and is the action allowed or is the action denied, and you can enforce at the workload level itself. So this provides you micro-segmentation within that application and application to application as well. Apart from that, one of the other concerns is what's the security posture of that application? What type of score is there? So we have a dashboard where we break down into certain categories of what type of vulnerabilities are present in the packages, what's the attack surface, are there any anomalies on the network or inside the application. So for example, if I look at the vulnerabilities, okay, let's look at this one. So if I open for that specific workload, I can find out these are the packages installed, and each package for that version has a certain vulnerability. And you also get a CVSS score. You can directly open the vulnerability and check the remediation actions. So the more the vulnerabilities or more the packages which are vulnerable, you would see a less score all around. So this is one of the parameters, how do we get the complete visibility into the workload and the vulnerabilities. Second, attack surface, okay. Attack surface is actually a very nice example. So for example, you might be having your development team, they might have opened certain ports to do a testing, and then they forgot like to close that port, or they are not using it anymore. So with that attack surface, there is a chance that an outsider can attack that using that particular port. So we give out a list of the ports which haven't seen any traffic for the last 15 days. So probably you can close them in your security group. You can close that at the workload level itself from this page itself. So this is on the workload side. Next, I wanted to actually show you now that application security is there, you have segmented the application. The next step would be to allow your remote users to access the application and provide security not only for the credentials that they are providing, security for the device from which they are accessing. So with Duo, we have that particular application, the device health. Yeah. So this does a validation of certain posture for this device. So if the OS is updated, firewall is enabled or not, I manually turned off the firewall just to showcase to you. Is the password set or not? So with the newer laptops, you have fingerprints. On the phones, you have Face ID. So you can integrate a passwordless experience so that even though a user might share his password or his password is compromised or someone saw what he's typing or his password is not, his password is very simple, so that attacker can guess it, he would still need to access the Face ID or the fingerprint on the laptop to access those websites. So in this example, the firewall is not enabled, so I would not be getting the access. So let me just try to open one of the websites. So this is all the remote working scenarios where I'm not connected to the office VPN, I'm connected to the Marriott Wi-Fi. And if I want to open, for example, Box application, I think, yeah, this is the one. Okay, I need to do it on the incognito tab. because it will directly take me. So if I open the Box application and I go to the Cisco login, as part of the SSO we have the Cisco login, it would redirect me to the Duo Network Gateway. Duo Network Gateway is our reverse proxy engine, which you can install as a lightweight software on the AWS itself, on the outside, and it checks the device security posture. So it checks the device security posture. As you can see, it directly indicates my security is not correct, my firewall is disabled, so I would not get access from this laptop on that particular application. So this is one of the main use cases that we have for remote working, where users can be using their personal laptops, they could be using their corporate laptops, and they have controls to remove the password, remove the BitLocker encryption, remove firewall. So to mitigate all those things, we have very tight policy configurations. You can configure policies based on browsers, different versions of the browsers, different geolocations that you have. So, and the last part actually I wanted to show you. So with remote working, you would obviously want to allow access to other websites also. And if you have access to other websites, user might download malware. He might not know it's a malware. He might access a website which is to be a known malware or a CNC servers. So users don't know all those aspects, and that needs to be controlled for your DNS traffic that is originating, or the web traffic that is coming from the user's laptop or the desktop. He might not be accessing your applications which is on the cloud. He might be accessing a social media network during work hours. So you can block that access. Let me just show you. So with Umbrella, you get the total requests that you are seeing and the total blocks based on, let me just check the total blocks here. So if I show the activity, it'll show you the activity which is coming for the DNS from that particular traffic. And this is the traffic which is not even hitting your corporate network. This is direct internet access from the user's laptop to Facebook or maybe Twitter, and you want to block only the social media part, and you want to allow access to maybe Stack Overflow or maybe the AWS console. Specifically, you want to allow that access. You can create that list, and you can have a deny list for maybe social media, maybe online trading you want to deny for working hours, maybe from 9 to 5. There should not be any online trading on the company hours, or maybe no Twitter on the company hours. You can have those controls even not connected to the VPN or the traffic not hitting your corporate network. So that's the last part. So we have covered the micro-segmentation, remote working, and remote working with how do we provide security on that laptop. So I'll hand it over to Anand for just closing.
All right. Thank you so much, Vijay and Raghav. Super presentation. Folks, whatever you saw in terms of the capabilities are solutions that are available today in partnership with AWS. You could enable them through the AWS marketplace, or come back to us. We will come to you with a procurement methodology for those. So all of this is available on AWS, again, in the marketplace or offline as well, depending on what your procurement method is. With that, I'm going to close my session, but I do want to leave you with one offer in case you would like us to come and look at your environment, and if you're interested in any of these solutions, please let us know. Happy to come by and do a demo, and if possible, a pilot in your environment as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patil and the entire Cisco team for that engaging presentation, very comprehensive as well. And now on to our final session for the evening, and this is going to be a roundtable discussion that will deep dive into the importance of converging security as well as observability in the hybrid cloud environment. We've spoken about the theory. Now let's get a glimpse of what the real world problems are and the solutions are. So we're going to be inviting a couple of clients as well on the panel right now. It's a power-packed panel, so do stay tuned in. And after that, of course, we open up the night for dinner as well as drinks. So let me invite on stage for the roundtable discussion Chandra Balani, Head of Global Enterprise India at Amazon Web Services. We've got Shiv Kumar Pandey, Group CISO BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange. Kiran Belsekar, Senior Vice President of Aegon Life. Okay, and Anand Pandey of Cisco. We've already heard Chandra as well as Anand speak earlier, and now we'll get some insights from Shiv Kumar and Kiran as well. And I'm Reema Tendulkar from CNBC-TV18. So, Mr. Pandey, let me start with you. That's Shiv Kumar Pandey of Bombay Stock Exchange, BSC. Now, we've already heard about why cloud. What are the benefits of the full stack observability tools that AWS Cisco offer, the kind of protection, the layers of security to keep and protect your data for today as well as for tomorrow, the future. But you know, financial sector is also unique because it's highly regulated. It's the custodian of personal, private, confidential information. And there are also a lot of compliance requirements. So can you tell us the real world problems as you migrate to cloud? What are the challenges that you face from a security as well as from a monitoring or observability point of view?
See, like if you talk about us, I think 90% we are on premises only. I'm only 5 to 10% we are on the cloud, and we are using AWS right now. And see, for on-premises also we are using purely on the private cloud because most of the application is on cloud native in nature. So you don't have an option to at least make it standard like in cloud infrastructure kind of stuff. Coming to the challenging part, I'll start from the regulator point of view. So there are lots of policy on the regulator and all, especially when you're talking about your data should be on Indian geographical locations and all. The policies say that then how you can prove it, and then whether the audit is allowed. And when I'm saying about the audit, where it's all about, it's different, when you talk about AS, PAS and SAS kind of model. And similarly, when you are talking about the VAPT should be done, the quarterly. When I am talking about majorly on when you're talking about the critical infrastructure, like we identified, notified as a critical infrastructure. So how VAPT should be allowed, on this cloud environment. And I'm just looking for the sure.
I'll get my time.
Yeah. So these are the when you're talking about the challenges coming, though people are saying the cloud egress from the cloud is also a big challenges when you're talking about it's all depend upon what kind of model you are going on the cloud, and depending upon then. Some of the challenges you talk about the visibility and the control. I mean, we have already discussed on the more on that, visibility and control. But the visibility and control on each model, when you talk about DOS, SAS, and PAS, and then very important, the responsibility at each level. What kind of responsibility customer and what kind of responsibility, the service provider and the client have it. So these are the some of the the very important risk, or you can say the challenges.
Both of you are going to get your chance to respond, Chandra as well as Anand. But let me get Kiran into this discussion. You know, despite multiple layers of security that one could put in place, you will always have those unexpected malicious attacks which take place. Oh, sorry. You will always have these, cyber attacks at the infra level or at the network level. But at the end of the day, you get these frauds, and security is a chief concern for all financial companies. So could you tell us what you've been experiencing as you migrated to cloud and in a hybrid cloud environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. That was an excellent question. I think we have been seeing the cloud journey. So we as an Aegon Life, we started the journey a couple of years back, just prior to the pandemic, this thing. And that's where actually we had set up we have taken as a complete ecosystem approach where we are able to build the bottoms up cloud native ecosystem, which was, we had a vision about creating a completely microservices, event-driven architecture around. And that's where we were able to get a lot of visibility around. So if you look at the traditional insurance ecosystem, it is more of a monolith infrastructure, and that is something. And when we took a digital journey or a strategy, we wanted to be a cloud native. We wanted to be a digital native the way our ecosystems, our tech ecosystems, if you look at the tech-enabled partners, would like to integrate with us. So basically a similar kind of a culture, similar kind of a tech ecosystem, which can really help in the faster integration and a time to market perspective. And that has really helped. So that is a positive response which we have seen from the partners. Coming on the security aspects, obviously a lot of transformation and a lot of innovations has been happening around on the cloud space for the customers' perspective, but it also calls out from the security aspects as well. And that's where we have taken an approach in terms of the way we had a cloud native approach from a digital native organization. So similarly, we had an approach for the security as well. And we had to embed the security as a feature into all the releases or in the platform rather than looking at as a bolt over approach, which ideally we look at, and that becomes another project in itself for any security team. And that's where we looked at development, whether it is in terms of also from a security aspects and from the operations aspect perspective. So that's where the DevSecOps we looked at, and also the solutions around from being a cloud native, the posture management we looked around, the cloud workload protection perspective. So those were the ecosystem which got embedded in a shift left architecture, which got embedded into the tech ecosystem. So if you look at, we heard about the most of the errors in the cloud, whatever news we are seeing in terms of the cyber breaches is all about human errors. Unless and until you detect them at the early stage, you'll not be able to remediate them. So I think that's what the ecosystem in terms of the cloud native ecosystem, which we got stitched into the enable so that it does not become a bolt over. And just to take an example, it is like when do you need in terms of the car brakes are actually required when there is an accident, not after the accident. So that's where we are trying to build in terms of, and what we have built, we have that cyber security brakes in between so that whenever we need them, they are activated at that point of time, not after the incident.
So we've got one player who is only who's 90% on-prem and has hardly shifted to the cloud, and we've got another player who's fully migrated to the cloud and is completely a cloud native. But Anand, would you like to respond? Mr. Pandey here did raise some concerns. So would you like to have a go?
So I think if you think about what the pandemic had done, you talked about pre-pandemic, but really the pandemic pretty much accelerated the trends of digital transformation that were already in play before the pandemic. And that's true for most organizations. And digital transformation is actually a driving factor for transformation across the infrastructure, more so security. So security has also undergone a massive transformation in terms of thought process. Earlier, we used to have a perimeter, which used to be around our data center. You move to the cloud, you move your employees remote, there is no perimeter. So the principle of zero trust is the only principle that you can really go to ensure that you are secure everywhere you go. On the application side, it is about zero trust using microsegmentation. On the user side, it is about zero trust with the identity of the user as well as the posture of the device being the least common denominator, right? In the cloud, the least common denominator could be a container. You want to secure and implement zero trust at the container level. So as you saw from the demos that Vijay and Raghav did, it's about how do you secure your workloads in the cloud using microsegmentation, get the visibility, get the dependencies, make sure you're locking down everything that needs to be locked down. Don't keep any doors open for attackers. Find out what your vulnerabilities are, remediate them. And then on the user side as well, how do you protect the users? How do you make sure that they're not getting compromised? You saw passwordless being implemented, dual factor authentication, and so on and so forth. So, just a few examples.
So needless to say, security today cannot be a lift and shift exercise for any company, especially in the financial space. But Chandra, very simple question. How secure is AWS Cloud?
Yeah, it's a great question, I think. And I'll probably start by first of all saying, we love both Bombay Stock Exchange and Aegon Life and of course Cisco. They are all in using cloud
right
in a big way.
The right time to say and CNBC-TV18.
You didn't let me finish, right? So, but we also love BSE because we see the opportunity in front of us. And yes, CNBC-18 helping us get together, right? But on the analogy that Kiran used, right, the brakes piece of it, right? But if you think carefully, what does brake do, right? Brake, of course, has a function of stopping when you need. But brake is essentially what is assisting you in speeding, right? The bigger, the better car and the bigger, the better accelerator that you have, that can only happen if you have that good a brake as well, right? So security, strong security on the other hand, right, also leads you to grow faster, right? If you have to improve your pace of innovation, if you have to improve the agility in your business, you need to also ensure that you're extremely, extremely secure, right? So to answer your question, yes, AWS is secure. We say security is job zero for us, right? And what it means is if anything goes wrong, we drop everything else and then ensure that that part is taken care of. AWS Cloud is designed and is working for the biggest military customers, for the largest global banks, people running highly sensitive data on AWS Cloud. And the same platform, same processes are available for everyone in the world, be it a largest banking financial services customer or even a startup, right? So it's basically democratization of security at the highest levels available for everyone, right? Having said that, I'll agree with the statement that Anand made earlier, that it's a shared responsibility model, right? So AWS takes care of the responsibility of security from the operating system to network to physical security of infrastructure. And customers take care of the responsibility of the applications that you're running. Why? Because only you have the access, right? The way cloud is designed, the way AWS is designed, we don't have access to what you're running on AWS. We don't know, right? And only you have the controls, and you design who gets the control, of your infrastructure. So you set up a virtual private cloud when you start, and then you design, who has the access, and then only you can ensure that security of your workloads are taken care of. From AWS perspective, what we do is, for your side of the security, we have certain best practices white paper that are there. We have partners who help us in ensuring that security, be it from a configuration management perspective, access control, network security, or data encryption, right? We also see situations on how does the data secured. So if you think about it, it's a self-managed process, right? So when you create a let's say an S3 bucket, only you have the access, or you can give the access to who can look at the data, right? And if there is sensitive data, you encrypt it, right? You have encryption tools available. Even for any mistake, it gets exposed, with encryption. Without the keys, it's of no use, right? And to make it even more foolproof, We also have services like Amazon Macy, which is a machine learning service, which detects any PII or sensitive data that you might have stored on your S3 buckets in the cloud, and it'll trigger that, hey, you have sensitive data, and that is access is open, right? The moment by mistake anyone opens the access, it's what do you call that? It's restricted by default in S3, but in like you mentioned, 99% of the security breaches are because of the human error, because from the customer side. So even if there is a mistake done, there are machine learning tools that are there triggering you to ensure that, hey, go take care of that and make it restricted. And then you also called out the regulator and the compliance side of it, right? So with the stringent processes that we have, like at AWS scale that we operate, we can invest in a lot more security measures, both from keeping the infrastructure secure and also from policing what's happening from your infrastructure with all those measures that we take. And we go through those certification, right? Audit certifications that are required to manage the scale, right? I mean, we can't, of course, have every customer come and do the audit. So what we do is we go through the maximum, I think there's some 60 plus certifications that are being done. Be it ISO 27017 for cloud security, 27018 for cloud privacy, SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, PCI DSS level 1 compliance is being done. Like some of those restrictive customers have FedRAMP compliances. So you can have a look, right? aws.amazon.com/compliance. And you have the list of all the compliances that are done at a aggregate level. And all those reports are available with a click of a download from your account. We call it AWS artifacts. So all you have to do is attach that, and your compliance and regulation work is done.
I have a very simple question. If I have to do the pros and cons of migrating to cloud, on the pro side, there is going to be agility, scalability, cost effective because it's a pay-as-you-go model. Then you're fast to fail, cheap to fail, and there are lots of pros to it. But on the cons, I always hear security. Why is that?
So I think it's the perception as well, right? The point is, these days, like I said, customers are moving to the cloud because they find it's far more secure, right? So what I would suggest is, don't go by hearsay, work with us, do a pilot like Anand mentioned, and then use partner solutions, right, to ensure that we go even one level deeper. I know Anand wants to come here. I'll let you.
Now, I was just going to add an analogy, right? As a human population, we are far less secure today than our parents were 20, 30 years ago. And that's by virtue of our lifestyle. Are we going to stop using mobile phones or credit cards or even, search engines or the internet for that matter? Everyone has our data today. So it's up to us to secure it. Just like Chandra said, there is a shared responsibility. There is obviously stuff that the provider needs to do, AWS needs to do to secure their infrastructure, but there's also responsibility on all of us to ensure that our data is protected. So yes, there is a larger surface area that is prone to attack, but that's I guess it's a balance that you have to make.
All right.
Given we are in a BFSI kind of a setup, I'll give an analogy of a bank, right? When you have lots of money, you don't find it safe to keep it at home. You take it to bank because bank at an aggregated level is ensuring that the security guard is there, and then the lockers are there to ensure that money is safe, right? We do the same thing at AWS, right? We collected aggregators, so much of data that is there. We go through all those stringent processes, and just we take it one step further ahead. In bank's case, the bad actors know where the money is. We don't even share the location of the data center, right? Someone was asking, we launched our second region, by the way, in Hyderabad yesterday, which is like $4.4 billion of investment in the next few years. And the question was, I'm from Hyderabad, like I said, have you seen it, right? Hey, even as an employee, I'm not allowed to visit. I don't know the address, right? So that is the level of security that we take care, because if security is a issue, we lose our business, right? It's a $80 billion run rate business, so job zero.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to move to the second topic, and that's observabilities. And here, Mr. Pandey, I would like to get your thoughts in. Today, all IT efforts have to be connected to a business outcome. And it's no secret that if any customer in any field has a bad digital experience, they are going to maybe boycott the business or at least stay away. It hurts the business directly. So in that context, can you tell us your thoughts on the traditional monitoring tools that we have versus the full stack observability tools that we just heard today?
Yeah, definitely, observability tools help a lot. Finally, what, it uses about your the application behavior, your network behavior, and using an AL and ML, how you can completely automate the process. So, it's like your MTD, mean time to detect and mean time to respond, improves a lot. And RCA, you can quickly find out. In fact, most of the things you can do the proactive manners rather than, the reactive macros. And your complete visibility and control is there with the help of, your observability.
Kiran, same question to you. The surface area has increased. That generally adds to a lot more complexity from an IT point of view. Can you tell us how you've benefited from the full stack observability tools as you worked with AWS as well as Cisco? Any real examples that you could share with us?
Yeah, certainly.
And any issues as well?
Yeah, sure. So certainly it is, if you look at the complexity, it is building more and more. Compared to like the environment has become quite hybrid. You have an on-prem, again you have multiple hyperscalers into the ecosystem. On top of it, you will also see a lot of SaaS applications coming into the ecosystem, which does not has a boundary even from the technology department perspective. So business will go, marketing and HR will go, and finance will go and hire technology. So I think it is becoming very complex environment. And here actually the traditional application performance monitoring tool, the APM tools are actually not really working. And other is also on the top of it, the cloud native workloads. If you look at the infrastructure as a services, and top of it, we are seeing containers or Kubernetes, which are getting favorites in the developer community. These are also adding, and on top of it also is the infrastructure workload. If you look at the compute, the storage, the network, all to it, the technology needs to have a complete good visibility perspective. And that's where, when you are going to be a cloud native, that's where something in terms of kind of an aggregator is what we try to also build upon, where all these logs are coming and all the matrices are getting consolidated out. And the ecosystem is also need to externalize the data. If you look at from a personas of developers, so I think they would be largely interested in certain debugging logs or kind of a dashboard which needs to be very precise for them. If you look at from an operations would be largely looking at more of a compute monitoring services. And if you look at a security, they will be largely looking at from a threat intel and an events and an incidents perspective. So everyone has a very different requirement. That's where the full stack observability really comes into help, because no one is going to really go and monitor the tech ecosystem with an eyeballs 24/7. You need to have an events, and on top of it, you need to have an automations in place, because it is not only about finding the incidents, but you also need to remediate them. And that has to, because the challenges in terms of finding out these vulnerabilities or the gaps and patching them, I think that is something which is the threat actors really look upon from a security perspective, because it's always going to be a time consuming by the time you really patch or we really remediate that. So that is where we need to have an automation built in, and this full stack observability really helps in terms of identifications to remediations and automation perspective.
So brings down mean time to resolution and predictive abilities. Anand, anything that you would like to add, and any interesting or unique use cases that we've seen in the financial sector?
Yeah, I suspect that we are standing between the audience and dinner, so I'll try and make it fast. Just to illustrate the complexity that Kiran was talking about, I'm going to take an extreme example. It's not from the BFSI industry, so pardon me for that, but just illustrates what we're going through, right? Everybody knows the app Tata Neu. Yeah? Tata Neu is the front-end app for all of Tata's retail assets. Now, if you think about the retail assets, there are more than 40 of them. Big Basket, Chroma, Tanishq, Titan, even their airlines, Vistara, AirAsia, everything. And each of these, Voltas, all of those guys, and each of these are separate companies in their own right. So imagine, that's separate CRM systems, separate supply chain, separate inventory management, separate loyalty management as well. And to create an app that integrates with all of these systems in the backend across all of these companies is not an easy task. So the resulting app that they created, which is Tata Neu, actually has about 1,000 microservices and over 7 to 8 layers. And there's no way they could have done this without the cloud, right? But at the same time, during the development, how do you think they kept track of all of the complexities, the interactions between the various components of the app? It was using observability tools, app dynamics. And then, before they launched it in the market, they actually did a pilot using Thousand Eyes, Cisco Thousand Eyes, where they were able to actually point out 7 or 8 locations across the country. And they said, okay, I'm going to send traffic, synthetic traffic from all of these locations and figure out what is my user application experience. Take a broadband connection, a 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi connection, all types of things from different parts of India, and hitting the app, going through every option, every menu, and making sure that the experience was right. Okay, that's the only way they were able to launch successfully on day one.
Do you want to add anything, Chandra? Give us an example where it's resulted in direct, better business outcomes.
So yeah, I mean, from AWS perspective, from a observability perspective, we have our native services like CloudWatch and X-Ray. We also have some of the open source products like managed Grafana or managed Prometheus. And then of course we have partnership with Cisco, where full stack observability with App Dynamics and Thousand Eyes, right? I'll probably give an AWS specific example on why you should use App Dynamics along with AWS. Think about it. If you can gain insights and then are able to reduce your CPU performance, right? If you're able to reduce the CPU utilization and improve performance, like a few percentage points dip there across hundreds of instances, if you're deploying like Kiran is doing at Aegon, right? You certainly are saving a lot of money there, all right? Or if you're able to, let's say, do a capacity prediction and you are able to, figure out how you're able to utilize and see the patterns of your usage, you can actually prepare better commercial construct on how you use AWS itself. Like you can use a combination of reserved instances, savings plan, where you have a higher discount available versus on demand. And just by having that, you have a huge amount of money that you can save on AWS bills that you pay to us. I mean, we always promote that, customers should only pay us what they really should. And we help proactively in cost optimization. And then our partners like Cisco are helping us ensuring that they are optimizing the cost for the customers.
Okay, Mr. Pandey, one final question. If you have to choose today a full stack observability tools that meets your business outcomes, what would be the parameters that you would keep in mind?
See, it's depend upon where you're taking it. We are taking out for the business purpose, or you're for infrastructure purpose, or a security purpose, because I don't think so one common tool can suffice everything, for all the stakeholders. Examples like we are using for the security tools. So we for cyber security purpose. So we gathers the data from application, from database, from security devices, network devices, because so complex in the things. And we completely, with the help of AL and ML and complete automation, which we have done. So now we not only we are protecting, our infrastructure, even we are protecting the things, what kind of attacks can be possible on the same, depending upon the threats or vulnerabilities which is available in the systems or not. So it's all, the areas which you are, looking for the same.
No, fair enough. But any particular thing that you would keep in mind? Any advice to people?
See, it's like if you talk about the, as We are just going on with the, the modules where we are talking about the different areas. For the security, it is different. For business, it is totally different. And when you talk about the infrastructures, monitoring and all, it is different. So it's all depend upon the requirement, and then accordingly you can decide.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly open the floor for Q&As. We could have 1 or 2 questions. If anyone has, please do feel free.
So this observability, if somebody is on the cloud, okay, on AWS, so is it as a service we can consume on AWS? And are you on AWS? That is first question. And are you in India? Okay. Second, I wanted to have a visibility or understanding on AWS, which is in Hyderabad, because when we went on AWS in 2020, actually we migrated 80% of our IT stack on AWS with VPC. Unfortunately, we were not there in other zone, other geographical location. We have to somewhere host our DR somewhere else. So what is the replication stack you have built, and how many landing zones are there? Thank you.
Should I take the first one? Sure, okay. So, short and simple answer, yes. Yes, yes, and yes. But, when you think about these services, so we talked about App Dynamics, you talked about Thousand Eyes, we talked about security solutions like Duo, Cisco Secure Workload Umbrella. We have the ability for you to consume that directly from the marketplace with AWS. If you are a customer of AWS, you can actually go to the marketplace and find all of these available. Yes, they're hosted in India. If you want to, for example, procure it as a BYOL license, that's possible too. And yes, they run on AWS as well.
Thank you.
I'll take the second question. Hyderabad region has started with 3 availability zones straight away. Right, Mumbai, when we started in 2016, we started with 2 availability zones, and then as the customers started adopting more and more capacity requirements, we added the 3rd availability zone in 2019. Hyderabad, straight away with 3 availability zones, it's an investment of $4.4 billion. So that's, you can imagine the size of infrastructure that is being built. It's a full-fledged region, so you can deploy it for any workloads that you like. But I love to get you from 80% to 100% on AWS and get your DR on Hyderabad region. Happy to take it offline.
Unfortunately, that cannot happen because I am also connected to capital market and there is a compliance. So I have to put my 20%, which is jewel crown.
We can definitely discuss
private.
offline.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll just add from a practitioner perspective. I think a good question, Sanjeevan. I think we have been practicing religiously in terms of cloud. So whenever there is an doubts, I think all the hyperscalers have a good marketplace. I think if you just go and hunt around marketplace, it is quite easy to, from a time to market perspective. Coming from a DR perspective, I think if the application is appropriately architected, I think it's quite easy. The way we move the AZ, we could move the region as well. So I think that's a short answer.
I think there was another question.
I was very impressed with this App Dynamics. And it makes a lot of sense to be able to get the visibility and the insights there. I just wanted to know how much in real time is it? I mean, do you get the data to be able to do this various drill downs just about in real time, or is it half an hour later? What is the frequency of getting that data across?
So, Vijay, keep me honest here. We have a polling interval of 1 minute, you said? Yes. Yeah, every. And you can also customize. Before the 1 minute, you can get it. But latest 1 minute. So it's near real time.
Near real time. Thank you.
One final question. No.
So, any integration, if you talk about any integration, whenever we used to come into one discussion, from client end, majority it will be IT, InfoSec, and the application stakeholders. from AWS and this InfoSec guy also backed up by compliance, regulatory things, and risk. I never seen those kind of department or SPOC from AWS. So I really want to know any initiation from the AWS in this front, whether it is a SEBI governance, RBI, PFRDA, or something else. Are you guys having your own risk team or the compliance team, which will understand what customer want? We all struggle to let you know what our expectation is, and you guys never, have the ready-made answers on that. So if you can highlight that. Thanks.
Sure. No, good question. And to your point, when we launched our first region in 2016, we had a lot of Indian customers adopt, and that's where banks started coming to us. Hey, how can we adopt in a regulated environment as governed by RBI and Gopala Krishna committee? So we in fact wrote a paper on how can banks in India adopt, keeping those regulations in mind with all the check marks, all the line-by-line regulations that are called out by RBI as well as Gopala Krishna committee. So that paper is available right from 2018. Maybe we still haven't done a great job that it has not reached you. But happy to connect offline and have the team work with you to ensure that all those assets are across you. And if there's anything we need to ensure that you are checking all the boxes, happy to help. Yep.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? And then you can hound them when they're eating.
When the drinks open.
Yeah. They're not sure. Maybe if you'll give the right answer when you're drinking. Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Yeah, hi, this is Hitesh from Fractal Analytics. So I've been working as a BSO in Fractal. And we have a lot of our infrastructure in AWS, but there are one or two areas which we are struggling in AWS. One of the area is, there are many instances in Kubernetes and other containers we have created, but it becomes very difficult to have a visibility of overall inventory what we have in AWS. So at any point of time, if you want to know what our infrastructure is in AWS, like it's a real-time environment. Many developers, they develop their instances in AWS. So how easily can we, at any point of time, we get that complete inventory of what we have in AWS for our tenant?
It's absolutely very, very straightforward. Through your console itself, you can get it. In fact, we also have AWS config as a service, which can give you like a complete inventory, and any changes that happen in the infrastructure also can be captured from that. That's one of the value add of running it on cloud. Like unlike in a data center where CIOs get worried about the rogue servers under a desk developer is running in the infrastructure. In AWS, you have a complete visibility of the entire infrastructure, and use AWS config as a service. I mean, if I remember it right. And then you have CloudTrail kind of services where you can absolutely capture, all the logs around everything that's happening. Maybe happy to again share those details offline as well.
Sure. And just the same continuation of the question regarding the APIs. So as you mentioned about a lot of integrations happen in terms of different vendors and connectivity. The developers also connect to third-party vendors, and we might be aware from the compliance point of view. So is there any specific tool available to search the number of APIs which are running in the AWS environment for the tenant?
API gateway?
API gateway is the way to make the connections. But then to search, I'm not 100% sure.
Like the overall API security configuration, what is there? Is it secured or not?
There are the tools available in the market which search all the APIs related to you and provide you the complete list of all the APIs and the associated security also.
Marketplace would be the best place to go, I would think.
All right. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you, Chandra, Pandey, Kiran, as well as Anand for joining in. Thank you very much. Do stay in for dinner, and you can, of course, ask all of them the questions that you have. Thank you.